Good morning, Wham! How you doing? Jamestown makes it. We're going to learn how Jamestown succeeds. And we kind of already talked about it a little bit. It's amazing what they did, taking Native American land away so they can farm and grow tobacco for cigarettes. Yay, America!
Yeah, that could have been.
Yeah, so that I'm not sure that's the best way to succeed, but it's the truth.
And that could have been the way they died. Like, you know how, like, 90% of them died? Could have been because of that.
No, they hadn't found the tobacco yet.
Oh.
So they haven't figured that out yet. All right, buddy. Here you go. Your looks a little fuzzy, though.
What?
The camera looks a little fuzzy. Say hi, Connor.
Hi.
All right, there you go.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, that's weird. Okay.
Chapter 9. Jamestown makes it. At last, the settlers found gold. Gold in the form of a leaf. A leaf that dried to a golden brown and could be put in a pipe and smoked. That tobacco leaf made people rich. It made the Virginia colony prosperous. King James hated tobacco. He thought it unhealthy, and he was right. But there is a limit to what even kings can do when money is involved. Growing tobacco is very profitable, especially after John Rolfe, Pocahontas' husband, developed a sweet variety that was all the rage in England. But there was a problem. It takes hard field work to grow tobacco, and the Englishmen were not anxious to work in the fields. Besides that, even the best farmers could only tend only a limited number of tobacco plants. So, if you wanted to get rich by growing tobacco, you had to have people working for you. The more people you had, the more tobacco you could grow, the more tobacco you sold, the richer you would get. That made servants and other workers very valuable in Virginia. So, the Virginians did everything they could think of to get people to come to America. But since most of the settlers were dying, it wasn't easy. Most of those who came were poor or in trouble with the law. The colonists were eager to have so eager to have workers, they were willing to pay for them. Sometimes they paid so much money that ship's captains would kidnap people from the streets of London. Many of those who came to Virginia started out as indentured servants, and usually they were very poor. Some of them were criminals who were let out of jail if they would agree to come to the colony. You can understand that most people didn't want to go to a land where so many people were dying. The indentured service didn't have enough money to pay their boat fare to the New World. They had to work for the person who paid the fare. They worked from 4 to 7 years before they were free. That was their time of indenture. Some indentured servants were treated just like slaves. So we got to be careful there. It's way worse being a slave. But an indentured servant, it sounds bad, but it kind of makes sense. Like, you can't afford the ticket. So then that's your payment. Say, I'll work for you for a while. That'll pay off my ticket. So it's not completely unfair. What about slaves? Were there slaves in Jamestown? Yes. Yes, there were. Slavery in the English colonies began without much thought, which is the way bad things often begin. In 1619, a Dutch ship brought a boatload of Africans to Jamestown. These people had been kidnapped from their homes by African traders and sold to the ship's captain. He in turn sold them to the Virginia settlers. Those first African Virginians were treated like indentured servants. Alright, after a few years of working for someone else, they became free. Oh, that's great. Soon there were Africans who had land of their own and servants too. Oh, that's good. But some colonists got the idea of making black people into slaves. That way, they wouldn't have to keep buying workers on the docks. Must have seemed a good idea to people who were desperate for workers. Tobacco agriculture demanded much labor as well as a lot of land. There was an abundance of land in America, but few people willing to do hard work in the fields. When Indians were enslaved, they ran away. It was difficult for the blacks to run away. Where would they go? Everything was new and strange to them. Gradually, laws were passed to trap black people in slavery. It was the beginning of a way of life that would bring misery to many, many innocent African Americans. So that's one. I know we remember 1620 for the Pilgrims, and that's great, and we should. But 1619 is also the year when slaves started coming to America. Not something to be proud of at all. All right. Well, have a good night. We'll read on later. Say good night, Connor.
Good night, Connor.